All right, everyone, welcome back to Talkin' Soccer. I'm your host, Justin Horniger, and today we're going to take a trip over to the European side of women's soccer. I know we talk WOSO relatively frequently on this channel. Most of the time we focus on the NWSL, and while there's some playoffs to look forward to this weekend with match day 1 in the Champions League, I thought it was a good opportunity to really dive a little bit deeper into European football. I want to do a little bit more of that on the channel, both on the women's and the men's side. Talk about some Premier League a little bit more, definitely talk about Champions League games, and just have an opportunity to dive in a little bit deeper into individual matches. Of course, I'll always keep an eye on NWSL playoffs and MLS playoffs, but expect a little bit more content from this channel in the future. That's your hint. Hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up if you end up liking this video. With all that being said, let's move on to the Champions League. If you're not familiar with how the groups are set up, with how the draw went this year, we'll run through it. Group C and D played today, so let's run through those groups first, and then of course I'll name off Group A and B before we dive into the minutia of those matches. So Group C, you have Arsenal and Juventus, Zurich and Lyon. Of course, of these games, you have Arsenal and Lyon, the heavy hitters really facing off, and then Juventus and Zurich playing as well. This is my group of death. This is definitely three teams who, in any other year, could be in the semifinals. Group D, you have Barcelona, Bayern Munich, FC Rosengard, and SL Benfica. Of course, Barcelona playing Benfica today and Bayern playing Rosengard, the first game that we'll talk about here in a second. Checking in with groups A and B, those look relatively similar. Group A is a little bit tougher. You have Chelsea, you have KF Vlasnia, you have Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid. And then Group B, it's a little bit more straightforward. You have Roma, you have SKN St. Pölten, you have Slavia Prague, and you have VfL Wolfsburg. So now that you kind of know the makeup of the groups, let's roll into these games. Game 1, you have Bayern versus Rosengard in Munich, I should say. The team from Malmo making the trip down. They've played each other in the past in the 2021 season. Rosengard lost. They weren't able to score a single goal throughout both of those matches. They fared a little bit better here today. On the upswing, right? You're on the road in Munich and you're able to at least make it a game. So let's talk about it here. Rosengard actually go up 1-0 early. They had some sustained pressure in Bayern's half. They were able to kind of take it out. You get this idea that Barcelona were kind of like lulled into a sense of false security, that they were able to just go out there and take it to Rosengard, but not the case. Much sustained pressure and a lot of balls sent into the middle early on. And as we'll talk about, it's kind of a theme throughout these games. Balls sent into the mixer often end up in the back of the net, especially when they're at kind of an awkward level. Loretta Kalashi sends home a mid-height header sent in by Olivia Shaw. And that is what gets you that first goal. It was kind of, near post, and you would think that Maria Gross probably would like another attempt at that. She was already in that kind of adjacent near post area and is able to get a hand on it, but it's just such a close deflection that's never an easy save to make, even when you're right there. So now we end up 1-0 Rosengard, and Bayern have a little bit of a hole to dig themselves out of early, but they would definitely dig themselves out, because what you saw throughout this game was some real confident play throughout the midfield. And that's where Bayern definitely were able to take advantage of Rosen in this game. So what you saw 10 minutes later, Carolyn Simon is going to send in just a beautiful over-the-top ball looking for an attacker, and it doesn't find anybody. It doesn't find an attacker, doesn't find a defender, and it doesn't find a goalkeeper, as it just bounces like in the dead zone in between everyone and takes a fun bounce into the corner. Definitely a goal that the goalkeeper would want back. It's, again, one of those kind of like awkward balls that the goalkeeper definitely has her eyes on the attackers, because it's a crash the net situation. So you're looking to see where this ball is going to deflect from, and ultimately it doesn't deflect from anywhere because it hits the ground and goes to the net. So it was a beautiful ball at the top, though, and that's what you have to give the real credit to. 1-1 going into the half, all tied up. And I thought Rosengard actually did a really good job coming out of the half. I thought they looked energized again. They were able to really capitalize on some of Bayern's mistakes early on, but that wouldn't last the entire half. And when you think of like teams that are somewhat in a battle back and forth, ultimately the decision relies on who has the most talented individuals. And that individual brilliance comes from Bayern Munich and comes from Georgia Stanway in this game. Georgia Stanway kind of picks up her head. She receives the ball in the midfield. She makes a couple defenders miss. And all of a sudden there's a lot of open space. So Stanway is able to lay it off to Claire Buell, who drives the touchline, sends it in the middle again, a nice little mid-level cross into the mixer. And after some pinballing, some deflections, finds the way onto the incoming Linda Dahlman, who hits it in stride into the back of the net. Very satisfying when you see those kind of goals go in, just the way that the ball hits the back of the net. I just love it. So 2-1 Bayern, and it's not quite over yet. Rosengard are able to kind of regroup, come back at them. There's a crossbar at about the 70th minute mark that makes things close, but ultimately Bayern are able to see it out. But it was nervy. Bayern are going to look at this game thinking that they have a lot to tighten up, a lot to adjust for, especially when they look at the rest of their group and, they look at what Barcelona did today, for instance. That's not pretty when you look at that performance. All right. 1-0, but 2-1. Bayern get the 3 points. Let's move on to the next game. So moving into Group C now. FC Zurich making their group stage debut against Juventus. And Juventus look good. Juventus definitely, especially in the early going of this game, were trying to overload the flanks, and Zurich definitely bit hook, line, and sinker on that plan. And Juve have a few real strong chances to win the first 10 minutes. And Juve, this is an interesting game, but it's one of those games where Juve dominant. They look like they're in control of this game. This game probably should have been as lopsided as say the Barcelona game, or say what Arsenal and Lyon ended up being, even though talent-wise they're not actually that far apart. But a lot of frustration. And I talk about this with the Kansas City Current sometimes. I talked about it in a couple other lost videos if you want to go back in the channel. But there is a thing where, when you have possession, when you have so many quality chances and they're just not going in, then you start rushing your chances. You start taking shots from far out. You start missing the net on shots that should be at least hitting the target. And that's what you see from Juve. They take a lot of low XG shots. They are rushing their chances. Instead of making passes, they're shooting. And it's all tied up. I thought that the Zurich goalkeeper, especially that first 70 minutes, Romero did a very good job, obviously keeping them in, making tons of saves, and keeping Zurich in the game. But with Juve's frustration building, they made a very crucial sub. So Sonoya comes in for the last 15 minutes. And I thought her energy in this game just completely transformed. And within a minute of her coming onto the pitch, she's already forcing a tough save by Romero. And there's a ball. It's hard to say what happened, but Romero was caught very, very flat-footed. The ball is in the box. It's worked over to Sonoya, who is screened slightly. So I think Romero probably doesn't have a clean look on this. But the way the ball moves right past her right leg as it goes into the net. It didn't seem like enough to kind of justify that goal after all the saves that she'd been making all game, but you have a fresh player coming in, very skilled, very able to kind of exploit those tired legs, and it's 1-0 within minutes of her coming on. Zurich still tests Juve on the counter a few times, but Barbara Bonaccia comes in for the final 10 minutes, and again, like we said with those subs, really injects life into that Juve attack. Bonaccia finally capitalized on a ball that finds her off a deflection. She points to the corner, paints the corner, and seals it. It's just it's a ball that Juve have pressure. They're pressuring, and it's being deflected. Juve are taking shots, and finally gets deflected out to her, and it's a laser guided goal, and Juve move on 2-0 over Zurich. And let's move on to our next round of games. Next up, we have Barcelona and Benfica. Of course, I'm not going to roll through every goal of this game because this was a freaking bloodbath. Barcelona win 9-0, 9-0 over Benfica. There's not enough superlative to just say like how dominating of a performance this was in Barcelona. So let's read off the goals. Guerrero scored in the first minute of this game. They scored 50 seconds into this game off of sustained pressure. That's not ideal. That was definitely a sign for what's to come. Ben Madi scored in the 15th minute. Oshola scored in the 34th and 85th minute. Caldente scored in the 50th minute. And so on and so forth. This game was just such a bloodbath. And I think it's more of one team just being ultra talented and Benfica not having anywhere near that level of talent. I think it's very telling that Benfica's FOTMOB page doesn't even load. Not that that says anything about any teams, but when you consider just what Barcelona is, the players that they have on that team, it's a lot to deal with. I thought Ashuela's play was freaking phenomenal. It's hard to say that someone is unheralded when they're a former Ballon d'Or winner, but she had 2 goals, 2 assists. She created a lot with her movement too. If you watch the other goals, defenders are just paying her way too much attention. She's able to kind of move in off the back shoulder, and just with her movement, she opens up space. And I can't speak enough for how impressed I was the way that she played coming off this game. And obviously dominant, overwhelming talent. You just can't say enough about that. And her goal in the 34th minute is just a breathtaking shot. Let's leave it up right here.
Well, it is Beth Mead. It's magnificent from Mead.
She just is able to control it and just blast it into the back of the net. And that ball is not being saved by any goalkeeper in the world. So, Barcelona 9, Benfica 0. Let's move into the final game of the day. The game that was kind of the marquee game for me, that I don't want to say it didn't live up to expectations, because it did, but it did not. It was unexpected that Arsenal would be this dominant in this game. But Arsenal take on Lyon. Of course, if you're following the Ballon d'Or situation, Beth Mead was obviously named, but she was not invited to the event. And I think she took that as a slight against the whole of France, as you could tell by the way that she played this game. So let's run into the goals here a little bit. The first goal is just how you write it up. It's this beautiful over-the-top ball from Kim Little. Beth Mead's able to take it down in stride. She's going to send it in a nice little cross that honestly could have hit 1 or 2 attackers, but Caitlin Ford is the one to get on the end of it. And 1-0 relatively early. And I think that goal in itself encapsulated exactly what Arsenal was there to do. They're there to play beautiful attacking soccer, and even if Lyon were able to make some noise at points, Arsenal's midfield was just too on their game today. They just overran Lyon in every way. And you know me, I'm a big Lindsay Horan stan, so that hurts me to say, but that is what happens. I'm here to tell the truth. The second goal comes after Blackstenius is sprung by a brilliant pass from Walti, and the way that it just like caught the defender sleeping, the way that this ball just goes through. So Blackstenius kind of runs to the defender. She waits to kind of create some space. The ball eventually finds its way to Frida Manam, who makes it 2-0. So 2-0 early. Arsenal they've stunned Lyon here, and you can tell Lyon are a little bit shocked from it, but they get some life. This is after the second goal. Lyon kind of upped the pressure a little bit. They're right back in this game. OL fight back as Lindsay Horan kind of takes over play a little bit here. Finds herself on the end of a corner, and her shot, it's a perfect pass off the crossbar. It's a shot, hits the crossbar, it drops right to Melvin Millard, who's just able to put it in the back of the net. So 2-1. OL looking like they can get back into this game until Beth Mead is giving a free kick just in a dangerous area. So Beth Mead lines up, the wall sets up, the keeper's in place, and Mead just steps up, curls it kind of ground level around the wall. It's able to find the far corner of the net. It's a picture perfect free kick. And 3-1 just before the half. It's a demoralizing goal. It's one of those goals where you feel like you're getting back into this game, and then right before half you get punched in the gut. And I didn't think OL came out of came into the second half with the energy, with the play that they needed to get back in this game. 3-1, plenty of teams have come back from 3-1, but it's the energy that you bring in after a gut punch like this that they're the defending champs, and to get taken to like this by Arsenal is very surprising. So second half, more of the same, like I said. In the 67th minute, Caitlin Ford grabs her second to make it 4-1, and Beth Mead grabs her second a little bit later, and the final Mead goal is also just a golazo. She's able to strike this one from distance, beautifully curled. I mean, this was her revenge game for sure. Beth Mead, man, she's very good. She, if you were to watch those Arsenal and Barcelona games, you definitely walk away with just impressed by the talent of these players. So that's day one in the books, my friends. Let's look at the table. Of course, in Group D, Barcelona, Bayern, 3 points, and Rosengard and Benfica with 0. And then, of course, in Group C, Arsenal, Juve up top with 3, and then Zurich and Lyon down below. Of course, Lyon play Juventus next. That is a crucial game for them. They can't lose the first 2, then it's lights out. But you got 6 games. It's a long season. Looking forward to the games tomorrow. You have Wolfsburg against St. Pölten. You have Slavia Prague against Roma. And then in Group A, you have Chelsea against PSG and Lasnia against Real Madrid. So we'll review those games tomorrow as well. So let me know what you thought about these games. What was your goal of the day? Let me know down in the comments below. Like I said, if this is your first time here, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like that video. And we'll talk soon, everybody.